In the 3rd century before the Common Era, in a colonnade in Athens, a bald and unremarkable-looking man is pushed a cylinder of wood along a sloped board while his students watch in silence. He lets the cylinder go, and it rolls down the incline of its own accord, gathering speed, turning as cylinders turn, because that is what belongs to the shape of a cylinder. Then he looks up at his students and says, in effect, that this is what a human life is. To understand why that image mattered enough for Chrysippus to demonstrate it, and why the Stoics after him would repeat it for centuries, one must first understand what he was trying to answer. The question was old already in his time, and it has not aged. If everything that happens has been determined by prior causes, if the universe unfolds according to a fixed order, then in what sense are you responsible for anything you do? If your character was shaped by causes you did not choose, and if your actions flow from that character, then the praise and blame we heap upon one another begins to look absurd. A drunkard did not choose to be a drunkard. A coward did not select cowardice from a menu of dispositions. The philosopher who steals in the night steals because he is the sort of man who steals in the night. Where, then, is the room for anything one might call moral life? The cylinder is Chrysippus's answer, and we shall come to it slowly because it deserves slowness. But first, let us meet the man. Chrysippus of Soli was the 3rd head of the Stoa, following Zeno of Citium, who founded the school, and Cleanthes, the water-drawer, who succeeded him. Diogenes Laertius tells us that Chrysippus was born around the year 279 before the Common Era, in the city of Soli, in Cilicia, a place at the southeastern edge of the Greek world. He was said to have been a long-distance runner in his youth, and there is something appropriate in this detail, for he would become the sort of thinker who could pursue an argument across enormous distances without tiring. He came to Athens, we are told, and studied first with Cleanthes, though he did not always agree with his teacher, and the two of them are reported to have argued often. It was said of him, in a saying preserved by later writers, that if there had been no Chrysippus, there would have been no Stoa. He wrote, according to the same Diogenes, more than 700 books. Almost none of them survive. This is a fact worth sitting with. The man who systematized Stoic logic, who worked out the theory of Assent, who gave us the cylinder, who wrote more than any philosopher of his age, exists to us now only in fragments and quotations preserved by others, many of them hostile. What we know of him, we know through the sieve of Cicero, of Plutarch, of Aulus Gellius, of the doxographers who summarized what they had read of what someone else had read. And yet even through that sieve, a mind emerges, precise, patient, willing to hold two things at once when a lesser thinker would let one of them go. He was, by all accounts we have, not eloquent. Cicero calls his style dry. He did not perform. He worked. The principle we are approaching is called in the Stoic vocabulary the doctrine of fate and assent. It sits at the center of Stoic ethics because it answers the question upon which every other Stoic teaching depends. If you are told that virtue is the only good, and you are told that virtue lies in your response to what happens, then it must be possible for you to respond well or badly. It must be possible for the response to be yours. But the Stoics also believed, following the earliest teaching of Zeno, that the cosmos is governed by an inner reason, a logos, and that every event has been fixed by the chain of causes that produced it. Nothing happens by accident. Nothing could have been otherwise. The universe is not a random scatter of events, but an ordered unfolding, and you are part of that unfolding. How, then, can both be true? How can your response be yours if the response was determined? This is the knot Chrysippus set himself to untie, and the cylinder is the tool he used. Let us look at what Cicero preserves for us in the treatise called On Fate, which is one of our chief sources for Chrysippus on this question. Cicero, writing centuries later, is trying to work out the same problem himself, and he reports Chrysippus's solution with some care. The passage in Latin is what has come down to us, but the argument is Chrysippus's, and it goes something like this. Imagine Chrysippus says that you push a cylinder. The cylinder begins to roll. Now, why does it roll? There are two causes at work. The first is your push. Without the push, the cylinder would not begin to move. This is what Chrysippus calls the proximate and auxiliary cause, the external nudge, the thing that gets things going. But the second cause is inside the cylinder itself. It is the cylinder's own shape. Because it is round, it rolls. If you had pushed a cube instead, it would have slid or tumbled, but it would not have rolled. The rolling belongs to the cylinder. The push only initiated what the cylinder's nature completed. Now, the Stoic point. The events of your life are the push. They come from outside. You did not choose your birth. You did not choose your parents. You did not choose the shape of the world into which you arrived. You did not choose most of what has happened to you or will happen to you. These are fated. They are the push. But how you respond, what you assent to, what you make of what happens, this belongs to the shape of your character. It rolls the way you roll. And though the push is not up to you, the shape is you, and therefore the rolling is you. This is the beginning of the answer, and it is subtle enough that we must sit with it before we move on. Consider what Chrysippus is doing here. He is refusing to let go of two things that seem, at first, to contradict. He is refusing to say that you are not responsible for your actions, because your actions flow from your character, and your character is what you are. But he is also refusing to say that you stand outside the causal order of the world, that you are some little uncaused God making decisions in a vacuum. He is saying, yes, everything is fated, and yes, you are responsible. The fatedness of what happens to you does not erase the you-ness of how you meet it. The push does not do the rolling. The cylinder does the rolling. Let us look now at how this principle functioned in the life of the man who taught it. And here, we must be honest about how little we know. Chrysippus did not write memoirs. He did not, so far as we can tell, discuss his own biography in his philosophical works. What we have are anecdotes preserved by later writers, and these anecdotes are not always trustworthy. But they give us a sketch, and the sketch is consistent enough that we may lean on it lightly. He lived in Athens through decades of political turbulence. The city had lost its independence and was tossed between the powers that had inherited Alexander's empire. Philosophers came and went, schools rose and fell. The Stoa itself, which Zeno had founded in the painted colonnade of the Athenian agora, was not a wealthy institution. Cleanthes, we are told, worked at night as a water carrier to support himself while he studied by day. Chrysippus, when he succeeded Cleanthes, inherited a school that was rich in argument and poor in almost everything else. He taught, he wrote, He argued with the academic skeptics who were, in his lifetime, the chief intellectual rivals of the Stoa. He worked out, patiently and in enormous detail, the logical foundations of Stoic doctrine. There is a story, preserved in Diogenes Laertius, that Chrysippus died of laughter. He is said to have seen a donkey eating figs, and to have called out for someone to give the donkey some wine to wash them down, and then to have laughed so hard at his own joke that he expired. The story is almost certainly a fabrication, one of those tidy endings that ancient biographers like to invent for philosophers whose real deaths were undocumented. But there is another version in which he simply drank undiluted wine at a party and did not survive it. These are the traditions. Take them for what they are. What we do know from the fragments and the reports is that Chrysippus took his own doctrine with a seriousness that is worth attending to. He believed that the shape of one's character was something to be cultivated with care, because it was the cylinder that would do the rolling in every situation life presented. He believed that the training of the mind, the examination of one's impressions, the discipline of assent, all of these were the daily work of a human being who wished to live well. The Stoics used a technical vocabulary here. When something happens to you, you receive what they called a fantasia, an impression, a presentation of the world. Someone insults you. The impression arrives, I have been wronged. Someone dies whom you love. The impression arrives, something terrible has happened. A shipwreck ruins you. The impression arrives, I am destroyed. Now, Chrysippus said, the impression is the push. It is what fate delivers to your door. But the impression is not yet an action, not yet even a full judgment. What happens next is assent. You either give your agreement to the impression and take it into yourself as a settled belief about the world, or you withhold assent and examine it, and perhaps refuse it. Assent is what Chrysippus made central to Stoic ethics. Assent is where the cylinder rolls. The impression comes from outside, but the assent comes from you, from the shape you have made of yourself through years of thought and practice. A well-shaped character will not assent to the impression that an insult is a real harm, because it knows that insults touch only opinion, and opinion is not the self. A well-shaped character will not assent to the impression that death is terrible, because it has thought about death and knows what death is and is not. A well-shaped character, in other words, rolls well because it has been shaped to roll well. This is not passivity. This is the opposite of passivity. It is the most demanding kind of activity because it is the constant work of not being merely pushed. The world pushes. The world will always push. The question is what shape it is pushing against. There is a passage in the fragments where Chrysippus is reported to have said, in one form or another, that vice and virtue are both in our power because they are the shapes of our own souls, even though the impressions that trigger our responses are not in our power. Cicero, again, is the source, and Cicero is doing his best to render an argument that survives to him only through intermediaries. But the shape of the thought is Chryssippean. What is up to you is not what happens. What is up to you is what you have become and what you continue to become, because what you have become is what will meet whatever happens. Let us look at the implications of this, for they are not small. The first implication is that you cannot escape responsibility by pointing to your circumstances. You may say, and it may be true, that you were raised in poverty, that you were treated cruelly, that fortune has not been kind to you. Chrysippus does not deny any of this. These are the pushes, but the cylinder still rolls the way the cylinder is shaped, and the shape of the cylinder is what you have made of yourself and what you continue to make of yourself in every act of assent. To say that your circumstances have made you what you are is only half true. Your circumstances have pushed, your character has rolled. The second implication is that character is a matter of long cultivation. You do not become a well-shaped cylinder in an afternoon. Chrysippus, by all accounts, was a man of enormous discipline. He wrote day after day, argument after argument, working out the details of a system whose completion he would not live to see. He shaped himself over decades. And the point is not that everyone must be a philosopher, but that the shape of the character is made slowly, in the small daily choices about what to assent to and what to refuse, and there is no shortcut. The cylinder is not shaped by wishing. The third implication, and this is the one that gives the doctrine its peculiar Stoic dignity, is that even under absolute determinism, even in a universe where every event is fixed, there is still room for something we may honestly call freedom. Not the freedom to have done otherwise in a metaphysical vacuum, but the freedom of being the sort of being who does what one does because of what one is. The Stoic word for this, roughly, is autonomy in its most literal sense, self-lawing, being governed by the law of one's own nature. The cylinder is free in this sense. It rolls not because it is compelled by the push, but because it is the sort of thing that rolls. Its rolling expresses what it is. And if you have shaped yourself well, your actions will express what you are. And this is what freedom means for the Stoic. It is not the freedom to be causeless. It is the freedom to be yourself, fully and without contradiction, in a world that will always be pushing. There is a saying attributed to Cleanthes, Chrysippus's teacher, which was later quoted by Seneca and by Epictetus, and which captures the whole tradition in a few lines. In Seneca's Latin, it reads, "Ducunt volentem fata, nolentem trahunt." The fates lead the willing and drag the unwilling. This is the Stoic view of the human situation in a sentence. You are going where the universe is going. The only question is whether you will walk or whether you will be dragged. Chrysippus's cylinder is another way of saying the same thing, but with more precision, because it tells us where the walking happens. The walking happens in the shape of the character. It happens in the quality of the assent. The universe pushes. You roll, and how well you roll is the whole of the ethical life. Now we must be careful here, and Chrysippus himself was careful. It would be easy to hear this doctrine and to draw from it a hard and self-congratulatory conclusion that the strong of character deserve their strength and the weak deserve their weakness, that we are all justly rewarded by fate for the shape we happen to have. This is not what Chrysippus says. He says that the shape is yours, that assent is up to you, that the discipline of the mind is the work of a lifetime. But he also holds that the whole system, the pushing and the rolling and the shape of things, is part of a single cosmic order, and no one stands outside it. You do not get to congratulate yourself, because your congratulating is also part of what is unfolding, and there is no seat above the theatre from which to admire yourself. The doctrine dignifies human effort without inflating the human ego. This is a difficult balance, and Chrysippus, so far as we can tell from what survives, held it. Let us turn now to what the doctrine actually asks of you, because a philosophical teaching that does not ask anything is not a teaching at all, only a decoration. What Chrysippus asks of you first is attention to the moment of assent. This is the crucial moment. Something happens, an impression arrives. Before you assent to it, before you take it into yourself as a settled belief about what has happened and what it means, there is a pause. In that pause is the whole of Stoic practice. It is a very small pause. It may be almost invisible, but it is where you are. It is the point at which the push has come, but the rolling has not yet begun, and you have a hand in what shape the rolling will take. Someone insults you. The impression arrives. I have been wronged. I have been diminished. I must respond. The Stoic practice is to hold the impression at arm's length for a moment and to examine it. Is what has arrived truly a wrong? What has actually been touched? My body is untouched. My mind is untouched unless I let it be touched. What has been touched is my opinion, my sense of how I am regarded, and this is not among the things that matter because it lies outside my nature. So I withhold assent from the impression that a wrong has been done to me, and I do not roll in the direction the impression was pushing me. This is what Chrysippus means by the cylinder having a shape of its own. Second, Chrysippus asks of you the patient shaping of the character. He does not pretend that assent in the moment is possible without long training. If you have not thought about what death is, you will not have your Stoic response ready when death arrives. If you have not considered what an insult is, you will assent to the impression the moment it comes. The work is done before the crisis, not during it. The cylinder was shaped in the workshop, not on the incline. What Chrysippus wrote 700 books to say, in part, is that the workshop is your daily philosophical practice, and there is no substitute for the hours spent there. Third, and this is perhaps the deepest of his teachings, Chrysippus asks of you an acceptance of what has been pushed. The push is not yours. It came from the whole causal order of the universe, from a chain of events that reaches back before you were born and will continue after you are gone. To resent the push is to resent the whole order of things, and this is a resentment that has nowhere to go. The Stoic does not resent the push. The Stoic meets it. What the Stoic works on is the shape. There is something in this doctrine that has troubled readers for 2,000 years, and it is worth naming. If the shape of your character is itself the result of prior causes, then in what sense is the shape yours, in a way that makes you responsible? Did you choose your shape? Did you not inherit it, and have it beaten into you, and grow into it through circumstances not of your choosing? Chrysippus's answer, so far as we can reconstruct it, is that this objection misunderstands what responsibility means. Responsibility does not require an uncaused choice at the root of things. Responsibility requires that the action flow from what you are. And what you are is indeed the product of causes, but it is nonetheless what you are, and no one else is it. You are the cylinder in question. The rolling is your rolling. There is no other cylinder to which to assign it. This is not the last word in the ancient debate. Philosophers have argued about it for a very long time, and they continue to argue about it. But it is Chrysippus's word, and it has weight. Consider then what he is really teaching you. He is teaching you that you are not merely a passive recipient of what happens to you, but neither are you a self-created being who could have been anything at all. You are a shape in the world, moving in the world, meeting what the world sends. The meeting is what your life consists of. The shape is what you bring to the meeting, and the shape is not fixed forever. It is being made and remade in every act of assent, in every small choice about what to take in and what to hold at arm's length. What you assent to today is what you will be tomorrow. This is why Chrysippus writes so much about logic, about the analysis of impressions, about the careful examination of what one takes to be true. Logic is not for him a dry technical subject. It is the discipline of shaping the cylinder. If you have followed him this far, you have seen that Stoicism, in his hands, is not a set of consolations for the unfortunate. It is not a technique for feeling better about things. It is a description of what a human being actually is and how a human being actually works, and a program for taking that description seriously. You are a rolling thing in a world of pushes. Your work is the shape. There is no other work. Marcus Aurelius, writing centuries later on the Danube frontier, will inherit this doctrine in a more compressed form. Epictetus, teaching in Nicopolis, will preach the discipline of assent to his students with a fierceness that is Chryssippian in its bones. Seneca, writing his letters to Lucilius, will return again and again to the image of what one has made of oneself and what one has permitted to be made of one. All of them stand in the workshop that Chrysippus built. Most of his books are lost. The workshop remains. So let us close, as the philosopher would have closed, without ceremony. The push you have received from the world is not your doing. Your parents, your city, your body, the events that have happened to you, the losses you have suffered, and the goods you have been given. All of these have come to you from a chain of causes you did not initiate and cannot undo. To spend your life resenting the push is to spend your life at war with what cannot be otherwise. Chrysippus quietly would ask you to lay down that war. But the shape of the cylinder is another matter. The shape is being made now, in this hour, in the smallest of your choices about what to assent to and what to refuse. The shape is what you will bring to whatever pushes come next, and there will be more pushes, and you do not know their form. What you can know is what you have become, and what you are becoming, because becoming is happening in you now. The question Chrysippus leaves with you is not whether you are free in some absolute and metaphysical sense. He does not think you need to answer that question. The question he leaves with you is this: what is the shape of the thing that will meet what comes, and are you shaping it patiently in the hours when nothing seems to be happening, so that when something does happen, the rolling will be yours? The cylinder does not choose its incline. It only rolls as it was shaped to roll. Shape it well.